Hi everybody, my name is Jessica, I'm an alcoholic. Everybody hear me okay? Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's put on this conference. My heart feels so full and very nervous and charged right now, but such an amazing event, so grateful to be here. I'm really happy I'm going first, sorry Lee, get this out of the way. My sobriety date is January 8th, 2007. My home group is New Life, 8 p.m. If anybody is ever in Montreal, come and visit us, speaker meeting. And, you know, I was very, very, very thrown off by this topic for quite a while. I've been thinking about it, trying not to think about it for however many weeks now. Because if you told me 16 years ago I would be speaking at the Ontario Regional Conference, I probably would have laughed in your face. Yeah, I was really, 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 really miserable when I came into AA. And I don't know if I was sticking around here long enough just to feel better. It was my second kick at the can. I was pretty beat up by that point, but in no way did I want to stay sober and take your suggestions and lead a life through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was not appealing to me whatsoever. I've heard some incredible speakers here the past 2 days, and sometimes I wish I could stand up here and have a good reason for being an alcoholic, or at least a good story to be an alcoholic, and I really don't. I come from two loving parents, one older brother. All I know is that they were following their dreams. My father's in the PGA, and my brother was the #1 squash champion of the world, basically. My mother was just this thin, effortless goddess, and then there was me. Yeah, and I just never fit the bill. I never felt comfortable. I always felt like I'm just a helicopter just watching my life go by. And I would watch my brother train all day and my dad train all day and my mom doing whatever my mom did. And I just felt so uncomfortable. And when I came into this program and you guys talked to me about paralyzing fear, I know that paralyzing fear. I've had that paralyzing fear since I was a child. I remember in elementary school, and really there being nothing wrong, but there's a lot of stuff going wrong in my head. The impending doom that I can feel over absolutely anything. The amount of comparing that I do to you guys, right? That you have it all together and I'm just kind of missing the manual for life. And it was quite upsetting when you're, 8 years old because you don't really understand what's going on. So it made a lot of sense, right? Like I heard in this program, life starts to make sense in hindsight. We look back and everything is just starting to get pieced together, and no wonder when I was 10 years old and I was sticking my head under the box wine that my mom bought for my dad's surprise party, it felt like magic. I just got funnier, I just got cuter, all the adults loved me, and it was like, oh my God, I could breathe, and it was just, definitely wasn't this aha moment for me, but it was really interesting. I had these kind of, I wouldn't call them dreams, but I had these goals when I was younger. Like I was very good at soccer and I was going to be this soccer star, or I was going to be whatever, piano or whatever I was doing at the time. And one of the biggest things that I was always missing was, yes, coupled with the fear, but I had absolutely no discipline. When I saw how much work actually had to go into following your dreams, I was like, yeah, no. Like, give me the shortcut version, because that seems like a lot of work, And I didn't even know that I was a lazy person, but if I'm not interested, I can be very lazy. And so when the drink came in, it was like I had two choices. I was either going to be the best of the best, like the rest of my family, or I could be the worst of the worst. And I could get just as much attention being the worst of the worst. So I went ahead and I picked that. And I took my family for a real ride. I heard a lot about living amends today, and I don't think I'll ever be finished making living amends to my family. I watched their relationship, their marriage together, something that never went back after what I did to them. My brother and I, despite the amends that I've made, has been a difficult relationship as well, but this program has taught me to show up in whatever way I can. Show up for his children, show up for his parties, do what you can. But there was definitely a lot of damage done. And when I was under the influence, I didn't need to have any goals. I didn't need to have any dreams. All I needed to do was drink. I needed to be at the bar. I knew you guys were going to be there, and it was perfect. It was dark. It was dingy. It was lovely, you know? Yeah. But it was very interesting, too, because it was so easy for me, and I had a lot of great friends at the time too. You know, grade 8, grade 9, and all these girls, they knew what they were going to be, and they were going to be veterinarians and whatever, and I was just like, it was like there was nothing up there. All I wanted to do was party. And I never, ever, ever needed to be convinced that I have a problem with alcohol when I got sober, because I do everything alcoholically. It's never been like, oh, I wonder like if I won't drink alcoholically anymore. It was like I am all or nothing with everything that I do in my life. So I'm grateful that that didn't take too much convincing when I did come in. But that was it. The goal was really to be the bartender. I had the attention from all the guys. That was perfect, and that's where the bar was set. And if the bar is set low enough, then I have a pretty good chance of nailing it. And that's what I did, you know, that's what I did until I really noticed that my drinking and my friends' drinking were two very different drinking styles. And when 3 o'clock in the morning would come, there was a panic that would set in, like, oh my God, are we going to run out of booze, right? When everybody was ready to just kind of like clock out and go home. So 2 rehab stints later, my first rehab was a non-12-step program, and they really like prided themselves on being like, you know, anti-12-step. And I was up there for a little while, and I got home, and it was like, what am I supposed to do now? You know, like I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to go to meetings. And in my head, I'm like, well, what else are you going to do? Nobody wanted to talk to me when I got sober. I had absolutely nowhere else to go. And I think my first rehab, I was about 19 years old, and I came out of there and I got home, and my parents let me come back and live with them. And I just remember feeling, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was what I now know to just be dry. It was me without any substance in my body and untreated. That is the worst feeling for me in the world. I would rather be drunk than feel the pain that I have felt with untreated alcoholism, because I have nothing to medicate myself with. That didn't last too long. I think I stayed sober for a couple of weeks and went on a hell of a tear, right? And everything that you guys taught me the second time I came in, you know, it gets worse. It's a progressive disease, lower companionship, and that's exactly what happened for the next couple of years. And I finally, January 8th, 2007, ended up in a 12-step therapy rehabilitation program. And it was a lot. Like, it wasn't like the spa treatment that I had got at the first non-12-step therapy, right? We had like a chef and we had all kinds of stuff at the first fancy place. And then I got to the second place and we were like re-toasting toasted toast from the day before. And I was like, and they wanted me to like wash the baseboards. There was like a lot of praying going on, a lot of hand holding, a lot of women crying, and I just like, I wasn't into it at all. And again, my mind was like, okay, we'll do this because I'm stuck. I ran out of money. I couldn't have borrowed or, you know, took off with any more people's money by that point. And I was like, I'm just going to stay in here long enough to kind of clean up shop a little bit. But it's really a beautiful thing that happens that I'll speak for myself, but even when I'm not participating in Alcoholics Anonymous or in those group therapies, just listening did something. And I was watching these other residents at the treatment center have these experiences. It was actually incredible, the things that they were kind of working through in group. And we would have these lovely ex-residents who were sober, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, right? And they would come with their cars, and they would pick us up, and they would take us to these AA meetings in the evening. and they were so painfully happy and bubbly. I just wanted to like peel my skin off. It was just like, it was embarrassing. Like anytime people would show emotion or be really giddy or whatever it is. I also come from a very British household, so we didn't do a lot of that growing up. But I definitely knew that they had something that I didn't have. And it was a 3-month program, and they offered me the bonus 4th month, which was really nice of them. And we were talking about that in the car on the way here, and I was so upset when they offered that to me, but they were seeing something that I couldn't see at the time. They were seeing that I was not ready to go back out into the real world. And I think somebody asked me on the way down, like, you know, what would have happened if you were to have left after the 3rd month? And I don't know, because I needed that separation from alcohol, you know, and 4 months. And one of the beautiful things about this program too is the repetition. As annoying as I thought that it was at the beginning, the repetition and the structure is very good for somebody like me, because I can change my mind 17,000 times a day. I base my day off of my mood sometimes, and you guys taught me not to do that in here. You guys taught me do this no matter how you feel. Show up whether you don't want to show up. Do the opposite of what you actually want to do. And that one was brutal, because it was like, I want to stay home, I want to chill, I want to like date in the rooms, I want to like be dramatic, and you're like, yeah, don't do any of that. Do like the polar opposite of that. So I get out of this rehab, and my parents let me come and live back at their house, because unfortunately they had gotten therapy at the same time. And I'm sure a lot of people in here have been to a few Al-Anon meetings this weekend. And one of the worst things that can happen to a family is them getting their own therapy or their own program. And I was so screwed when I got out. My mom looked me dead in the eye and she said, here's a bus pass and a carton of cigarettes, and you steal $1 from this house and you're done. And it was like a you're done, like I knew that I didn't have any more bridges to burn. But again, I still wasn't like, yay, it's AA time and I'm going to stay sober long term. You know, it was just like, let's just do this for now. And again, looking back in hindsight, it's things like this that make me believe that I have been protected by something greater than myself, because the way that I behaved when I got out of that treatment was nothing short of a miracle. They said, get up at the same time, make your bed at the same time, get a job, come here, go to group, go to an AA meeting, and go home. And I'm like, that sounds terrible, but I had nothing else to do. I had dropped out of high school. I had no driver's license. I was terrified to go even into the stores around my house because I owed people so much money. My name was ruined in my area, and I just kind of walked around with my head down. And so I did that, and my rehab was far from my parents' house and far from where I did my drinking, so it was almost like a little bit of like a reprieve to just kind of get out of my area and go there. And all I knew how to do was bartend. So I thought, what the hell am I going to do sober? So I applied as a barista at Starbucks. And I still think about that job today. I talk about that job often. It was one of my favorite jobs. You know, I was 21 years old. I was newly sober. I was serving coffee. But little by slowly, my spirit started to come back. You know, I was laughing again. And I remember a couple of months in, the girl asked me to be manager and gave me the keys to the safe. And I'm like, oh my God, like me? All I could think of myself was just this thief and this snake and this liar. And now all of a sudden these people are starting to trust me little by slowly. And I rebuilt my life at the age of 21. I had to do the things that I would have done when I was a teenager at that age. And I know it doesn't sound that much older, but it felt almost, you know, I remember my dad taking me to go get my driver's license, right? And just like having these experiences. And then I had to go to an adult education center to get my high school equivalency. And I remember sitting there doing this high school equivalency, and I'm like, well, that was friggin' easy. Why didn't you just do that when you were in school all those years ago? You know, like it really wasn't rocket science, and it just shows, like, I don't give things a chance sometimes, right? If you're not catching my attention right away, I'm really not that interested in it. And I went to meetings. I was a great meeting goer. I loved going to meetings. I loved all of you. I've never not enjoyed going to meetings, but everything that you would read up here, even how it works, it's interesting. I listen to how it works now, and I'm like, wow, that's really how it works. I don't know what I was hearing at 21, but it wasn't that. It was just this like mumbo jumbo. It was for like the older men alcoholic who had to do like the actual work. And I was like, I'm 21. I'm just going to clean up the outsides. I'm going to get some time under my belt, and I'm going to be good to go. And really, that's what I did, and that's what confused me a lot about this topic, thinking about it the past few weeks, because I thought to myself, that's exactly what I wanted to do at 21. I wanted to rebuild my life, and I wanted to show everybody that I wasn't a delinquent. I wanted to just play catch up and clean up the outsides, and then I would fool all of you. And I had this master plan that by the time I was 25, if I had these things on my checklist, then I would be okay, right? My mind often tells me that. Once you get this, you'll be okay. And that's the very tricky thing about my goals, because that's the ultimate lie. If I'm not okay now, I'm not going to be any happier with whatever carrot you have at the end of your stick. But nevertheless, I didn't know any better at the time, and I really wasn't getting like a female sponsor, that was for sure. It was not happening. All the females were like so serious in Montreal at the time, and they would like do the third step prayer, and they would tell me like they would get together at like midnight and they would all go on their knees and do the third step prayer, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, not into it at all. And boy, did I get sick over the years as a result. And I didn't know. I didn't know what untreated alcoholism was. I didn't know what my anger and my rage could look like without anything to blame it on. I didn't know what was happening. All I knew that was I was an aggressive driver. I've always been referred to as an aggressive female. I kind of wore it as like a badge of honor at the time, but it wasn't. I was quite rude, and I was very, very, very threatened by my environment. And I didn't realize that I was just scared and I was hurt inside. And I hadn't done any of the stuff to clean it up. I thought meetings were going to clean it up, and my friends and my fellowship and coffee before and after was going to clean it up. But nevertheless, I kind of went on, and I was achieving goals. I went back and I got my high school diploma and I got my driver's license, and then I said, hey, I'm just going to apply to university and see what they say. And I remember standing outside of my rehab. I was face to face with my counselor, and I opened my phone and it said, congratulations, you've been accepted to Concordia University. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out, because I was like, it was like that false feeling of like I had arrived, like I'm going to be okay. University is going to make me okay. And then I remember starting, and everything's very exciting at the beginning for me. I like shiny new things. I like starting things and I like quitting things. I don't like the process in between at all. It's like the gym. I don't want to have to show up every day. Just make me skinny, and I just want to do it once. So I start going to university, and then I get these university friends, and I'm really fooling myself at the time. And it's almost like I'm gracing you with my presence when I come into AA after. And I have this kind of like better than 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of feeling going on. And I don't realize again what's happening at the time. So I get everything on my checklist, and I get the university degree, and I get the car, and I get the condo, and then I got the poor sucker who was my first relationship, untreated, right? And everything blew up in my face so badly. And that's the problem, right? Our big book talks about putting the cart before the horse. And that's what I did, putting this checklist before cleaning up the insides. I wasn't even remotely interested in a spiritual experience. It was almost laughable to me. I'd never gone to church. We don't talk about God. We don't talk about anything in British households, but we definitely don't talk about spirituality. So the idea of a power greater than myself, and being honest and willing and sharing my defects of character with another female wasn't really too appealing at the time. And I think I'm the type of person that needs to be in a lot of pain before she makes any changes. And I'm grateful that it's a little bit less today, but I can tell you at 5-6 years, I'm not even going to call it sober, 5-6 years dry, I was sitting on my condo floor with my stupid degree on the wall and my stupid car in the driveway, and I felt so empty inside. Nobody knew who I was in AA. I just showed up like this version, this kind of stage character of myself. I was terrified. I was so terrified, right? It's the ultimate fear. If I truly tell you who I am and then you reject me, I've got nothing after that. At least if you reject the kind of staged version of myself, I'm not going to be that hurt after, because I'm like, oh, I'm just a liar anyways. And I was broken. I was really, really, really broken. And I remember asking this woman in AA in Montreal if she would take me through the steps. And she was kind of like, yeah, it's about time, you know? Like, she didn't really throw it in my face, but I could feel it. I could feel like all the women just kind of like watching me kind of go in and out and doing my own thing. And I started to do the inside work, and it was very, very, very painful, because not only did I have an inventory to do of my drinking, I had I didn't know you could really screw up your life sober too. That was news to me. And I had this ginormous inventory to do from being dry, right? There was no proper amends there. I was living in my parents' house after robbing them, after being violent with my mother, all these things I didn't even want to make amends to them. None of that was even going through my mind. It was just like, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. And I was still taking from my parents. The master enablers. They would just give and give and give and give and give, and I'm just disrespecting them back. And it was a real cold, hard look at myself when I went through those 12 steps for the first time. And when I was making my amends, it was the first time that I ever felt anything remotely close to this spiritual experience or a God of my understanding that you guys kept talking about. I made these amends to the best of my ability. I was told to write them down on cue cards so that I couldn't lie or cheat my way out of it, because I'm just going to half measure it. I'm like, oh, I'll leave this out and this out, but I didn't do that. And I went to each person, and I remember driving away from those amends actually feeling like the hole in my soul, even though it was like ever so slight, just starting to close a little bit. And things got a little better. I started working as a counselor at the same rehab that I attended, but it was interesting. It was like every new goal presented this new problem for me, because then my mind tells me, well, I'm a counselor now. I don't need to go to meetings. I just need to work 9 to 5. I'm working with alcoholics all day. And then I get sick again, and I don't even see it happening. And I've had to put my hand on this hot stove so many times to prove to myself that the simple suggestions that you offer me are my ticket to freedom. It doesn't really matter what goals I have, because any goal untreated, I'm going to burn it to the ground with my bad attitude if I'm not working a program. Any relationship that I get, any degree that I get, any job that I get, I have a problem with personal relationships when I'm untreated. And I fight with everybody. And I didn't know that it was happening. And, I can stand up here today, 16 years later, and only in the past, 5 years, have I finally started to try to practice these principles in all of my affairs. Try to show up honestly. And it was amazing, especially like on the friendship aspect. There's a member, I don't think he's here right now, but I moved to Toronto at 10 years sober, and I got to be a part of your amazing fellowship here, which I'll forever cherish, and a lot of the familiar faces that are here tonight that I miss so much. You guys taught me so much about the Big Book and so much about AA. And he looked at me and he goes, you know what your problem is? I'm like, what? He goes, you're on the outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're on the bleachers. You're on the outside looking in. He goes, you need to be in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he was absolutely right. I was still treating this place like, I'm coming and going, and when I'm in a lot of pain, I'm going to call, and when there's a crisis, whatever it is. But then when things would get good, I would kind of stop, right? It's like, when I'm really in pain, I'm going to meditate and pray a lot, and then I'm going to start to feel better, and then what do I stop doing? Praying and meditating. It's like you'd think after all of these years I would learn, And I think I'm a very slow learner. You know, I saw some people really take off in this program. I remember I graduated at the same time as this guy from the rehab, and I watched him have an entirely different experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. He got out and he started sponsoring all kinds of men. He started this men's group, and he was just on fire, and he was speaking all over the place. And the scariest part of that was I wanted what he had without having to do what he did. That's the story of my life. Give me the golden ticket, but I don't want to do the in-between. And only in the past 5 years have I really tried to make it my mission to now be in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's so annoying that you guys were right all along. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Like I was waiting for like the certain degree or the certain job to just prove you so wrong. I wanted to be the exception to the rule, right? Or maybe the smarter that I got, I could outsmart this thing and become this intellect and prove that I don't need a spiritual experience or I don't need to come to meetings anymore. And for a drunk like me, that's never going to happen. And all I had to do was be vulnerable and tell the truth. And the moment that I started to do that, I have never had more friends in my life than I do today. I have never had more sponsees than I do today. I have never wanted to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous more than I do today. It's a pleasure for me to be here now because I can just show up as one person. I don't have to be the stage character, and I don't have to be doing something stupid and secretive on the side like I was always doing. I don't have to constantly be like guilty or like, oh my God, like I have to call my sponsor and tell her, like, well, I still do that sometimes, but like not all the time. I can be, I remember my counselor in rehab, he used to teach us, try to be the same person wherever you go. And that was so difficult for me. I was the master at figuring out who you needed me to be, and I would be that for you. I took jobs based on that. What does my dad want from me? I tried to build a body based on that. How thin should I be so that you guys love me? How much money do I need to make? I've picked jobs for the salary, and I didn't even like the position. I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out later. It's ridiculous, my thinking, how backwards it is. And everything started to change based on the principles from this program. I was a better student. I'm a better family member now. At my home group, it feels like home. There's a meaning behind home group, and I didn't realize that. I was always just visiting these groups, and I would change home groups the moment things became uncomfortable or there was a business meeting that I didn't like. It really was like, oh yeah, this is not the place for me. I'm going to change, right? And now I find myself, at the center, and it's just interesting, and I was told this all along. If you put these 12 steps first, and you start caring about other people, I never knew how self-centered I was. I always wanted something from you. What are you doing for me? What are you going to give me? And now I don't operate that way. What can I give you? What can I share? Even when I don't want to share, what can I give back? And everything in my life changed. I lived in Toronto for 4 years, and I always say I left Toronto a kid and I came back to Montreal a woman. I was two different people from the experience that I had with you guys, and I'm so grateful. I see Ali and Butch, and I can't even tell you how much you guys have taught me and how much you mean to me, and just being so consistent. That's all it is. Just do. My dad used to always say that to me. He goes, you know what? You just never do what you say you're going to do. And now I do what I say I'm going to do, right? And I've put all of my effort into this program, into my sponsees, into helping others, and now I get to kind of reap the benefits. But for once, I wasn't actually even doing it for the benefits. And my life today, chasing your dreams in sobriety, sometimes I still feel like I'm going to wake up and be like, oh, it was just a dream, I remember you guys would ask me to come up here and read how it works, and I'd be so nervous that I was going to mispronounce a word, and my knees were going to buckle, and I could hardly even finish. I remember when I got let into university, I didn't even really know how to read, and my friend told me, okay, sit there with a dictionary, and every time you don't understand a word, look it up in the dictionary. And I remember being at my graduation ceremony at university and my family being there, And in 2 weeks, I'll have finished a master's degree and I'm applying to be a psychotherapist. And I just kind of stare at my life and it's like, you know, I didn't even realize this whole time that I am actually chasing these dreams in sobriety, but the only thing that I have to focus on is being honest and being willing and showing up here and listening to your simple suggestions. Thank you for listening.
Wow, Jessica, powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I know it wasn't easy for you. You're a little nervous, but you did it, girl. So once again, thank you. So sticking to the script, it says, after Jessica, and now for our second panelist from the Northern Lights Group, James Bay, Ontario, please help me welcome Lee L.
Sure, yeah, thanks. I should have went first. No, my name is Liam. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And yeah, it's I just want to say it's an honor to be here. Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege for sure to be here, and I'm very grateful, you know. I really am grateful. I just, you know, there's so many things that, you know, just listening to the messages today and then just hearing Jessica speak, like it's bringing everything into full circle, you know, and here we are together again, you know, like, and you can't mute me either because I'm not on a Zoom. There's no Zoom here, baby. No Zoom here. You know, yeah, like I was actually just thinking, it's interesting. Can you imagine if we were all drinking in this hotel right now? We are people that normally do not mix. And that is a miracle, you know, that is a miracle. And you know, beyond your wildest dreams, you know, somebody had mentioned, you know, and that was one of the unwritten slogans that I remember hearing when I first came to the program. My sobriety date is July 9th, 1996. And I sobered up in the Hamilton area, Hammertown. And anybody from Hammertown here? And there used to be a meeting that, you know, it was the Wayside Group on Friday nights. It was a bunch of bikers. And it was just so, they were so hard, you know, and they swore and everything too. And I was like, I'm trying to live a civil life now, you know, like what's this all about? But, you know, I remember a lot of the history of going to the meetings in AA, and like for Hamilton was really powerful for me. And you're right, it is a challenging topic to start thinking about. But when I was thinking of beyond my wildest dreams, you know, I appreciate what you said about the internal world of the spiritual condition that I have. That I never really believed that I could get to that road to get to working on inside myself of who I am. And when I think of dreams, I think, you know, AA and the 12 steps is basically like the perfect environment for somebody that's sick with alcoholism to come and grow in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it's something I couldn't comprehend in the beginning, and it's something that I still have a hard time comprehending, you know, that I am experiencing something beyond what I ever really would imagine, you know. And to me, that's very powerful. Like, I remember when I first came to the program, I heard somebody say once, you know, I'm drawn here by the attractiveness and to the spirit of the fellowship. You know, that spirit of the fellowship that's here. And then eventually I grow into the fellowship of the Spirit. And that is just remarkable, you know, and it is a miracle. And, you know, the freedom that comes from being able to dream you know, is amazing, because I never thought that I had the capacity to even understand that I could be where I am today. You know, and certainly coming into the program in '96, like I was just talking to somebody about this, there was only like 2 or 3 other people in Hamilton that were around my age. Like I came in when I just turned 20. And I remember listening to speakers and people share all the time, they were talking about World War II and stuff like that. And I was like, there was one guy, it always stuck with me. There was one guy that said, you know, in his story, he was saying, yeah, I remember when we were out, you know, on the battlefield, or we were at camps, and we used to dig a big hole and put a bunch of dynamite in it, and we pulled the bulldozer over top of it, and just for fun, we'd watch them blow up and everything. And you know, stories like that. And like, I couldn't relate. I couldn't identify. And I think, you know, what I needed to get to was a place where I had clarity in my thoughts, so that I can see that I can identify with somebody else, because all of my life, I was always comparing myself with other people and things. And that identification is so important, you know, of the spiritual part as well too, because we're all travelers, you know, we're fellow travelers, you know, and there's a lot of humility and a lot of truth and honesty and you know, all of those lessons that AA and the 12 steps have taught me have you know, it's a work in progress, you know. And I was thinking dreams and maybe more like hopes and stuff is just a work in progress as well too, over time. There might have been that main clarity, the moment, like Bill Wilson talks about, the clarity of the moment of clarity that Bill Wilson had, and many of us, the clarity of the truth of who I am, and understanding who I am as an alcoholic, and even more understanding that I'm a human being. Because part of what I learned in the fellowship as well too, that it was important for me to look at myself as also being a human being, because it's easy for me to also hide being an alcoholic and using that as a way to stop me from reaching you know, the reality of life, you know, if that makes any sense. And, you know, I started off in Hamilton. I went to a lot of AA meetings, and started to grow. And, you know, I was working construction out of high school. You know, I was doing sheet metal work. And I realized that part of me wanted to expand my life. I had this chance to do that. You know, I had a chance to go and do something that I wanted to do. So I got into university and college and studied clinical behavioral sciences and social work and things like that. So it kind of brought me into a whole other level. And I remember I always felt like, man, this was just a great place to study behavioral sciences, like the fellowship, right? And I think I got a lot of like good grades because I was researching, you know, like as my own recovery was unfolding, I was researching myself. And, you know, I think it's fascinating because when I look back, and a lot of my friends will say this, when they saw me in the meetings, I was always writing things down. And that was my way of coping with learning about who I was. Journaling. And interestingly enough, a year ago, I was able to compile a lot of the stuff that I wrote, and a lot of it was just nonsense. It was just nonsense, and I was talking about aliens and just paranoia, you know, and so, you know, but some stuff was really cool, and I compiled it together and wrote a book about my life in recovery. You know, and so, you know, when I was thinking of the conferences too, it was interesting, just going back to when I first came in. My sponsor at the time, he took me to the Kingston Institutional Conference. I don't know if anybody here ever went to those, but they kind of they were going for quite some time, but then they folded. But you know, those conferences really set me on a good path, because I remember my sponsor saying, you know, there's a talkathon and it's all like ex-convicts and stuff that had, you know, all the crime, most of the crimes that they committed, they were in a blackout, right? And my sponsor said, go and listen to those stories, you know. And I did that like for 3 years, like going to the conference and stuff. And when I look at that experience, you know, again, it opened my mind to having more clarity on where I was going in my life, because it brought that truth to me in a disturbing way, you know. And I think that's important because, like somebody had mentioned, I was so good, like a chameleon, you know, like I could really blend and shape myself into so many different things in life, and basically hiding in plain sight, you know. And it's so easy to hide in plain sight as an alcoholic. It's interesting too. There's another conference going on here for gaming, and I was thinking, you know what? We have something in common with that, because we love to play games, right? As alcoholics, so we relate to them, you know. And that was part of my personality too. Just evading the truth, evading so many things, and hiding in plain sight. It was very, very easy, you know. To do that, right? So I had this book I brought. It's my daily reflections. I'm going to read something from it. And it was about freedom. Freedom from, freedom to. We are going to know a new freedom. Freedom for me is both freedom from and freedom to. The first freedom I enjoy is freedom from slavery of alcohol. What a relief. Then I begin to experience freedom from fear. Fear of people, of economic insecurity, of commitment, of failure, of rejection. Then I begin to enjoy freedom too. Freedom to choose sobriety for today. Freedom to be myself. Freedom to express my opinion, to experience peace of mind, to love and to be loved, and freedom to grow spiritually. But how can I achieve these freedoms? The big book clearly says that before I am halfway through making amends, I will begin to know a new freedom. Not the old freedom of doing what I pleased without regard of others, but the new freedom that allows fulfillment of the promises in my life. What a joy to be free. And I thought of that reading for today because, again, thinking of the ability to see where I can go one day at a time in my life. And just quickly going back to the Kingston Institutional Conference, I thought about the prison idea that I had when I first came to the program, you know, and that it was explained to me recently that the prison that I had was just like holding on to these bars, but on each side it was open. It was a prison I was making myself, you know, with the alcoholism. It was of my own making. And even in sobriety, I can still do that. You know, I'm so skilled at, you know, closing myself in and not realizing that it's open on each side. And I can, on one side, it's like accountability. On the other side, it's responsibility. But after thinking about this topic, I thought I want to add dreams there as well, too. Because even though I put the plug in the jug, I can still, even in sobriety, close myself off to, you know, to where I want to go in my life, you know. And it's just, it's a powerful experience to be able to get in there and to learn those skills that I need to learn to be free. And, you know, I mean, accountability and responsibility, that's why I was drinking, you know, and I use that as an excuse. But even today in sobriety, I'm learning that there's other things I can still use to evade responsibility and accountability. You know, and even my poor behavior, I'll say, oh, I'm just an alcoholic, I'm selfish and self-centered. But, you know, when you get into the real world, people will call you out on that. And that, you know, it's easy to maybe, you know, lie in here sometimes, but in the real world, people really know us. Like, they can see right through us. And it's just that's what I think Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob and the first 100 men and women wanted to do in the beginning, was to get us from working through the 12 steps and you know, the fellowship and having that strong support. But we all know that once we have that fellowship, we have to go our separate ways, you know, into life. Like, we can't just stay here, you know, like forever. We have to go out and still do our things that we want to do. But as long as the foundation of the 12 steps and the fellowship is still there, then that's important for us to know that we can always come back to the safety of the AA program. And I see that in a lot of ways. I see that that's where sometimes the struggle is with our fellowship. You know, getting too comfortable and getting too safe where we are, and not challenging ourselves and taking those risks. Because Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob wanted, that's what they believed that the program and the 12 steps were, to get us back into life and back into reality again. You know, and I know, and I struggle with that. You know, I do struggle with that. I always feel like I need to come back to where it's safe, and that's normal. That's normal. But the key is to have safety that I can build outside of the fellowship, that I know that can be a part of my life. And it takes away this. Once I got into university and studied social work and clinical behavioral sciences, you know, I had a lot of people in the programs, they said to me too, they said, be careful, because just because you have that knowledge, self-knowledge of ourselves, you know, it doesn't mean that your ego can get pretty big because you think you know everything about everybody, and that's very dangerous, right? So luckily I do have people that keep me in line with that. But I find it fascinating, you know, the journey of the recovering alcoholic, and for myself as well too, and how bonded we are, you know, through those trials and errors, and learning, you know, from each other's mistakes. Like, let's go back to that identity that I talked about. You know, when I see somebody that's gone through a trial in their life and they haven't drank, that is a very powerful message, a very powerful story. And that's what kept me coming back, is to seeing somebody that, you know, goes through the regular life stuff, their loss of jobs, health issues, separation, divorce, you know, even a faith crisis, you know. Those are the types, and then see that those people work through those things. That's what attracted me to keep coming to AA, is realizing, wait a minute, they don't have to drink to go through that. There's something there, you know. And that saying I remember hearing when I first came in, you know, I want what you have, I want what they have, you know. And what is that, you know, like, what is that? And I think for me it's that identification that I can stay sober through life's trials, you know. And it's just very, very powerful to have that message, that story. And we all have it, you know, we all have that story to share, you know, and I'm grateful that I have that voice now. Like, one of the things I remember when I first came in the program too, not everybody can be a speaker, but everybody has a gift for sobriety. The person that makes the coffee, the greeters at the door. And when I first came in, they used to smoke in the AA meetings, so the people that clean the ashtrays up, you know, things like that, you know. And it's just so important for me to recognize that we all have those gifts to bring to the AA fellowship. How am I doing for time? Okay, I'm good. So yeah, like it's been an amazing day so far. Like, there's so much energy here. It really is powerful. And I'm just so grateful to be here, to ask to share. You know, it is a challenging topic to think about, but I know that one of the things that has helped me realize in my life, with my recovery life, in my spiritual life, is that it's okay to accept the mystery and the unknown and the uncertainty of my life. You know, when I look at the spiritual work that I do, that is another powerful element to my AA life, is the expansion of my faith, or the expansion of my beliefs, the expansion of my dreams. You know, like, it doesn't have to have a finite, you know, solution to what that is. You know, I can continue to be curious and explore how I've grown, and where was I last year at this time. That's a good question that I can present to you guys too. Think of where you were this time last year, and see how you've grown, and that inventory and see what happened. Like somebody presented me that question. I thought it's a really good thing to think about. Where were we this time last year? So I think, for me, it's that freedom to be somewhere, to cultivate, and not to sound corny or anything like that, but it's like, if you have a garden, you have to cultivate it. And that's what I see the fellowship of AA. And even my life outside of AA, my life with my family and friends, and my work life, that I can still have that ability to be a part of the society that once I thought rejected me, back in the day. So I'm going to just finish with this another reading, because I love readings. This is one of the first things that I remember hearing when I first came to the program, and I thought I'd like to share it with you guys. Desiderata. Original text. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even to the dull and the ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater or lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery, but let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. I like that one. I'll say it again. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. That's like step 10. Continue to prompt, what is it again? That's right. Thanks. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams. It is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Thank you.